That's what
Just do
that
it 3
is.
more times.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Once you make the mistake.
Nice. What's up,
There we go.
everybody? Welcome to our swinging session of Drummers Education Connection. We're here on Tuesday every Tuesday morning, 11 a.m. Pacific time. Normally, there's 4 of us. Myself, that's Bart Robley right there in Southern California. Hello. Say hi to Chip Ritter, y'all.
Hello.
And in absentia today is Rick Stojak, who is actually at the dentist this morning getting some sense drilled into him.
Yeah.
We wish Rick the best in his dental experience. Anyways, yeah, so we're here talking about drums and drumming and drum stuff, and we love to hear from you guys about what you'd like to hear on our show. We'd love to hear from you about your experiences based on the topics that we're talking about, or maybe even suggestions of some people you'd like us to see us interview. And we have a Patreon page, and this is a place where you can go and check out things we have that we give back to you when you give to us. So if you support us with like just even $1 a month, you get something back from us. Maybe it's one of our books, maybe it's a lesson, maybe it's one of Chip's juggling videos. We have all kinds of rewards, and we appreciate your support. We also like to thank one of our sponsors, Centerstream Music. We're gonna do it again later in the show, but Centerstream is a publication company, and Bart's books are on them, on that what do you call it, in that publishing
platform.
Yeah. And they've got amazing books about everything to do with music history, everything from banjo to bass drum. Check it out, centerstream-usa.com. And of course, thanks to Aquarian Drumheads, who perennially sponsors our show and gives us all cool drum heads to give away during our Christmas shows and special events like that. As a matter of fact, we are talking about the next deck day already. So we had a deck day in May up here in the Bay Area. It was terrific, successful, really, really fun. And we're talking about doing it again down in Southern California at the Aquarian Warehouse. So stay tuned for information on that, maybe next spring. I don't know. We haven't talked about it yet.
We haven't really thought about a date, but we're going to do it at Aquarian for sure.
It's going to happen.
It's going to happen. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Have you guys seen those red and blue Aquarian heads they got?
Yeah.
No, I have not.
They're really cool, man.
Put a link in the thing.
Where they had the the black circle around, like on the high velocities or any of those. They're they're red and blue, and they're pretty cool looking.
That's neat.
Yeah,
I'd like to check that out.
Yeah.
So before we jump into our topic today, which is how to avoid burnout, and really we're all just burned out, and we're going to lie about not being.
I'm so burned out. Why am I here? I want to go back to bed.
We'd like to kick off with good things. So, Chip, what's going on that's good for you, buddy?
Man, I've just got a good friend of mine who's back on the scene. He's playing his drums again and asking me for some advice. And I met with him this morning. We hung out at my house and just started talking about this topic, how to avoid burnout. And he went on a rant, just a riff about how to stay away from burnout and how to change things up for about 20 minutes. So I got some good advice from him, and
cool.
It was good to see him. That's my good thing.
That's a beautiful thing. How about you?
That's awesome. You know what? My good thing is this. We just got back. We had a one-nighter out in Vegas. We did a performing arts center out there, and the show went well, and they loved us. They want to hire us back. And I don't know if you guys saw in the news that there was a really bad truck accident on the way to Vegas, and there was a truck that turned over and spilled all these lithium batteries all over.
I did hear about that.
Yeah, and so it shut down the 15 freeway. So it was normally like a 4-hour drive turned into a 16-hour drive, which was so much fun. It was so much fun to sit in a car going through the desert at 3-4 miles an hour for 16 hours. It was fantastic. We had a great time, and glad to have made it home from that. I had a great time. And then the other good thing, on a serious note, I have on my Fred Rock Fisher hat right here. Our buddy Fred Rock Fisher, Fred Rock. Look at that. Look at
what
that.
What up, Fred? Yo,
Fred, if you're watching,
Fred
we're
Rock.
giving you some love.
We support Fred Rock School of Drumming.
Yes, Fred's the best of the best of the best of the best in Boise, Idaho. And yeah, so it's going good. What about you, Jeremy? What do you got going on that's good, man? You always got lifestyles of the rich and famous stuff going on.
Yeah, we're just stopping over for some caviar on the way to go jet skiing.
Nice.
We are. I'm joking. I'm joking about the caviar on the jet skiing. We're going to Russian River later today for a couple of nights with some friends.
Nice.
Michelle's got a place up there, so we're going to be on the river for a couple of nights and just enjoy some downtime. Looking forward to it. Yeah.
Very cool.
Very cool. All right. So what's up, Fred? We're going to talk about how to avoid burnout.
Yes.
Anybody?
I got nothing.
It's crickets.
Exactly. I need lots of coffee.
Yeah, right.
You know?
No, this is actually a real thing. This is a real thing.
I think it might be good to describe what burnout is.
Ooh, good. Yeah.
Yeah. So good. Okay, Chip, you threw it out there. Give me your definition of burnout. What is burnout?
Burnout means to me is there's a lack of enthusiasm.
Mhm.
There's a lack of inspiration.
Yes.
You just feel like, yeah, I could go either way, feeling apathetic about the situation, not really excited to play anymore,
Yes.
not really excited to practice, just kind of over it. You know, when people call for a gig, thinking about, you know what I mean? Oh, man, this means I need to move my drums. I'm going to have to do this. I'm going to have to do that. Nah, I'm going to say no.
Right.
Things like that, behaving like that, because you just tired of the situation and there's just no spark in the game anymore.
Yeah.
Oh, Chip, that was I could not have said it better, man. That was a perfect description of what burnout to me feels like and looks like. You know, I remember I went to see a show one time. It was in New Orleans, and it was with Henry Butler, who's this amazing piano player, blind, right? And so he's at the piano, and there's a bass player and a drummer, and the bass player, man, he's staring out the window the whole time, like he would rather be anywhere but there. He's playing his heart out, and the bass player's just kind of mailing it in, and I'm like, oh, dude, what the, what a disservice to the piano player, disservice to the music, disservice to the audience, and a disservice to himself, Yep. And I know we've all been there. We all fight it sometimes, and that's sometimes, sometimes we haven't ever talked about this kind of thing, but sometimes that's the gig, is like fighting through those demons of feeling apathetic,
Completely,
And sometimes the gig is all about mustering that presence of mind to be in the moment and appreciate what you have and be grateful for the opportunity to be there playing music. And, Lord knows it's not always easy, especially when you're working all the time. And Bart, you're on the road driving 16 hours in the heat to get to a gig. That's tough, man. That's tough.
That's a side of things people don't see, when you're, everybody wants to be a lot of people want to be in a band. A lot of people start in the music business. They want to be in a band, but they want to be the person on the stage. They don't see all the hard work behind the scenes that gets you there. And that's, man, when you see somebody sitting on stage playing, you're witnessing the end result of so much work to get there.
Right. It's like watching the Olympics, which are on now, right? You see these athletes who are at the top of their game, and they get to do their competition for like 45 seconds, but you don't see the 15 years of work that they took to get to that.
It started when they were 4.
Right. To get to that 45 seconds that you get to watch.
Yeah.
So, okay. So we've described burnout. I don't think we need to add anything. Unless, Bart, you got anything to add to what Chip said?
I got nothing. Chip just nailed it, man.
Okay, so
nailed it.
Imagine, a scenario where you've been playing a lot. It's the same tunes. You're with the same band. It's the same gig every night. What are some strategies or some thoughts or some things that you can do for yourself, things to surround yourself with that can help you sort of find the inspiration again, or avoid that feeling of the lack of enthusiasm?
I have a lot to say on it. I'm going to put a couple things into a nutshell. I'll tell a little story of mine, if you guys will indulge me.
Yeah.
I've been in Sam Morrison band for 25 years, right? And the members that have come and gone from the band are, it takes 4 hands to count them. People have come and gone. It's not for the faint of heart being in a touring band. Some people that you never would have expected to come and go, they left. And I hit burnout a few years ago, right before COVID. So I was actually pretty thankful for COVID, and everything kind of came crashing down. I've talked about this on the podcast before. Chip and I have had a podcast about this. I came to the realization that I was an alcoholic and I needed to quit drinking and I needed to turn my life around. So I got sober, and I also started looking at the fact that everything in my life revolved around being in that group, right? I mean, everything revolved around being in that group. And I was putting everything that I had into it. Now, I don't want to play the hero and the victim here. I'm not saying that, but what I really looked at was this: that I was putting so much into it in every way, shape, and form, and the people around me, some of them were as well. There's a handful of them that were really putting in a lot, but there's some of them that weren't, and they were taking the rest of the work that we were all doing completely for granted. And it was very it was just not good, and I won't get into it anymore other than that. But what I had to do was I had to take a step back, and I had to put up these boundaries and go, wait a second, I'm putting so much into this and you're not putting it into it. What am I doing here? I didn't want to leave the band. I didn't want to quit. So I just put up some boundaries, and there are certain things that I'm like, okay, I'm no longer doing this. This won't happen ever again. And then I looked at when I'm talking about that, I'm talking about myself. I'm not pointing fingers here, and I really did a lot of work on myself. And then I stepped away, and there's a couple of things that happened in my life once I kind of got my thinking clear. And I don't mean to sound vague with a lot of this stuff, but I don't want to be throwing anybody under the bus. But when I changed my life and I put the band still a very much a priority, but it wasn't up here. Like, I started putting my wife in front of the band. I started putting life and fun in front of the band. Things started happening for me musically. Chip Ritter called me, and D.E.C was born. One of the greatest things that's ever happened to me, right? I mean, this is fantastic. We sold our house, built this recording studio in there. I've done countless songs in here, done 2 full-length albums in here, wrote a new book. I started going in different directions. It was still musical stuff, but I started going in different directions. So I guess what I'm saying is, I think sometimes taking a step back and reevaluating your main source of, well, the main thing you're focusing on, and going, is this giving me what I want? And then last but not least, I'll say this. One of the things I realized too is that, which I didn't realize at the time, just because I wanted this thing that I thought would be success for a group of the band, right? I thought this will be, if this happens, we'll be successful. Just because I wanted it didn't mean that the other people wanted it. Right. So, okay, now I reevaluate it myself and go, I overstepped here, So that's kind of what I had to do with my band situation. And again, I'm kind of open about the drinking thing and quitting drinking and stuff, because there's been a couple people that have seen some of the D.E.C stuff and reached out to me. Hey man, I wanted to talk to me about it. So that's, I have no problem talking about that. But anyway, that's kind of my little thing.
Right on. I think Fred Fisher said something very key. He said, I get burned out if I don't have a goal I'm working towards.
Yeah.
And I think, when you're thinking about how to avoid burnout and you're not burnt out yet, making sure that you have plenty of goals in front of you to work towards and keep yourself motivated and busy, something shiny and so shiny and bright that it attracts your attention. I think that's a good key to avoid burnout. I was burnt out when I played with my reggae band. I was in the band for 7 years. We played the same clubs every week, and on Saturdays we'd be at Chicago Bar playing, and it's 10:30. This song is the one we're playing now. It was like such a redundant, repetitive thing, and it was reggae, so I was playing very sparse, very simple patterns. And I had, at one point, I was so out of it, I had the Walt Disney biography on my iPad on one ear.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
I was playing, and it was like Walt's family moved to Marceline in 1988.
Oh my God. Holy crap, Chip. That's next level mailing it in, dude. That is
I've never done that.
I'm not proud of it. I'm not proud of it, but I was in that place where I was just like, and things had to change. And what ended up happening was I ended up leaving the band, even though it was a good source of income and it was stable. I couldn't, my heart wasn't in it anymore. And I just finally got to a point where I was in so much pain with it. It was just like, it's time to move on.
Yeah. I really appreciate your sharing that story.
Me too.
And also, being honest about it. Cause that's where you were at with it. And, this kind of stuff hits us all in different ways and we deal with it in different ways. And sometimes it takes, getting to a point where you realize that you're not, there, you're not present, you're not enjoying it, to be like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
I should be, listening to Walt Disney autobiography, all the time.
Hey, let me ask this in regards to that. And I throw this to both of you guys. Okay. You're in the band for 7 years. You're burned out on the songs, but let's reverse it to where it's like, okay, I don't want to leave the band because it's a good band and I enjoy the people but man, I just hate this tune. And I have an anecdote for that. So I'm going to throw it to you guys first before I give mine. Chip, what do you do when have you ever found yourself in that situation? And if so, how do you deal with that?
Well, when we played Mustang Sally in the blues band, I used to try to think of playing a game with myself to get through the song. And I would say, okay, you're Clyde Stubblefield and you've had a great day. And so what's your groove going to sound like tonight on this one?
Nice. Or, I love it.
How would Gene Krupa approach Mustang Sally in this way?
I'd like to hear that. Man, that's a whole episode. What would Gene Krupa play on Mustang Sally? I love it. That's so good.
That's awesome. Jeremy, what about you? Have you ever been there? With a song?
With a song. Yeah. I mean, there's definitely songs I play even now in some of the bands I'm playing in. I just don't enjoy playing.
Yeah.
And it's not just a matter of like that. It used to be when I was 20, let's say, that it had my enjoyment of songs would have everything to do with how fun is the drum part to play, right? And if it was a simple, straight ahead Charlie Watts kind of drum part, I was like, oh, this is boring. There's nothing to this, And now I don't have that approach at all, or that attitude. Like I can love and enjoy playing the simplest stuff, and if it's grooving and if the song sounds great, I'm all in and make like, oh, let me just deliver that perfect vanilla as good as I can make it taste, right?
Yeah.
But so it doesn't for me anymore have to do anything with complexity, right? Whereas that's what it used to be about. But there's songs, where I'm playing with the band and it's just like, oh man, this song again, like we never sound great on this song, or whatever. You just gotta, it's short, it's only 3 or 4 minutes of your life.
Yeah.
And you got to remember that people are hearing this stuff for the first time.
Yep.
And God, I think about people like Bruce Springsteen, who tour when they tour or whatever, back in his prime, like 300 days a year or something crazy, and play the same tunes every night, and he just brings this intensity and this love for what he's doing, and the crowd goes nuts every time, and he plays it like it's the first time he's ever done it.
Yeah.
And that's what a professional, and then not just, I mean, he's just one example of so many. I mean, if a song I think the band's not sounding great on, I might say something at a rehearsal and be like, hey, this one's feeling like it's not really happening for me. Like maybe there's something we could do to tweak it or, goose it to make it a little bit more happening, or maybe we could consider cutting it. But that's assuming it's sort of an egalitarian band situation. It's not just the band leader and I'm just a hired person.
Right.
I think one of the things that
in regards to all of that works for me is you touched on it a little bit. Well, you touched on two places. First of all, you know, there's a lot of people that weren't there last night or have never seen you before or
Right.
whatever. And so for them, this song that you're burned out on playing, it's their favorite song. I love that tune. Thank God you guys played it, you know, and
Yeah.
I remind myself of that. And then I saw an interview one time with, actually, you mentioned Bruce Springsteen. I saw an interview with Billy Joel one time,
Hmm.
and Billy Joel was talking about who, I don't remember who it was. It was interviewing him, but they asked him, "What do you think about when you're on stage and you're playing one of your huge hits that's, you know, legendary?" He goes, "I'm not going to lie to you." He goes, "There's a lot of times I'm just like, I've been on tour for a month and we just played this one, you know, every night, like Chip said, in the same spot.
Right.
I wonder what I'm going to have for room service tonight."
Right.
You know, and that's what he said. And so I have to, if Billy Joel, one of the biggest selling artists of all time, is arguably one of the greatest piano player rock and roll stars ever,
Hmm.
can think that way about his songs that are legendary. Well, yeah, I mean, I get that, you
I think
know.
it's human. You know, and one of the things that
Yeah.
is it's good that we're talking about this and sharing some vulnerable stories about when we weren't at our best, is that it's human to be to feel this. You know, one of the things that I try to think of when I'm feeling that way on the stage is like, what if Greg Bissonette walked in?
Right. Yep.
Like, I don't want to sound like I'm mailing it in, you know. So it's a pretend thing for me to just think about. I want to sound good all the time. I'm always wanting to sound good. I'm always wanting to make the band sound good. And so that's where I need to focus my energy. Even if I'm not liking the tune, you know, okay, grind it out for 3-4 minutes and just, you know, do as good as I can.
This is the
Dude, we
best
played
crappy song I've ever played.
Right.
right.
Exactly.
One night we were playing, and this was a bigger show, so this was definitely not going to be phoned in, but we were playing on a live television show, and it was a pretty big deal, and it was at the Whiskey, and I walk on stage, and you know, the girl comes up and introduces us. We're on live TV. And I didn't let that get inside my head. It was more like, focus on your job, do your thing. Well, we start into the first tune. I had a couple of technical issues, and my guy that was there, thank God, helped me get through it. We're fixed. We're ready. We're rocking. Things are going good. I look over here, and who's standing there but Chris Brady,
Oh no.
DVD, you know, it had come with him to hang out and see the show. David Gilmour, Joe Walsh, all these famous people that he's played for, a sweetheart of a guy, but I got to throw down in front of that guy, you
Right.
know, and he's standing there watching us. And then next to him is Chris Stanky, my Sabian rep from Sabian Cymbals, you know, and yeah, you know, you don't want to, Bissonette wasn't there. Wish he would have been.
What a relief. Yeah.
But yeah, right. Yeah, thank God he's here. But yeah, there's that moment where you're like, okay, I have played these songs a million times, and I do know them, and I don't want to go to that place of, hey, what's for dinner tonight? Because these guys, I'm gotta be on my A game. Well, I think we should kind of have that care of the music every night, don't
You know
you?
what? I like you said that. In some ways, when you're sort of, you know, your wave is crested and you're kind of on the downslope with this band or whatever, it's almost like the path of least resistance.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
you're grooving and you're like, you know, and you start thinking about room service or whatever.
Yeah, right.
And you can almost, you know, I think the thing to do is maybe try to use those thoughts. As soon as you notice that you're thinking about room service, you can use that as a trigger instead of continuing to think about room service, right?
Yeah.
You can think like, oh, wow, the room service thought just popped up in my head. That should remind me to get back to focusing on the music.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know?
Yeah.
What was Pat Metheny? You guys know Pat Metheny,
Yeah.
the great jazz guitar player, talked about playing with Charlie Hayden. Charlie Hayden, one of the great jazz bass players of all time. Deep, deep cat. Beautiful, beautiful player and composer. And he said something about, Charlie said, or something about like every note is infinity, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
There's like infinite depth to every note. And like, wow, holy crap, to be that present in that every moment that you're playing a note, just as an idea, not that it's attainable, but like to strive for that presence where like, you're fully present with every note you play.
Mm-hmm.
And the power that the sound has as it goes out into the universe,
Yeah.
I know.
It's like
I like that.
Intention, intention playing.
There you go.
Versus a lack of. I think that's how you avoid burnout. And that's a practice. It's almost like yoga. It's like it's not something you either do or don't do. It's something you work at doing, because it's very hard for all of us to be in that deep present moment all the time.
Yes.
But that's where we want to be. That's when we make the best music, right?
Yeah, when you're in the moment. I practice and I train and I work really hard on different aspects of my drumming. But when it's showtime nowadays, when it's showtime and we're playing, like whether I'm in service at church playing or at a gig, I like to be in that state of flow where it's almost as if I'm watching myself play. Right. Where I'm not the source of the music, but I'm guiding the music with my hands. And it's a great place to be. It's kind of like surfing, it's a
or honestly, it's like a lot of things. Like I've experienced that playing sports, playing basketball or even softball and golf. Like it's unconscious, like, and you're playing great and you're not thinking about playing and you're just sort of in the moment, and things
that's the best place to be.
Yeah, in the zone, right?
So we talked about how to avoid burnout. Can we say, let's say somebody watching is burnout right now and they're just burnout. What are some choices they can make, or what are things you can do to get back away from the burnout, to get back and engaged again?
Yeah, great question. Can I jump in?
Go for it.
I think that one of the most important pieces is novelty, and I don't mean novelty like gimmick kind of thing, but like newness, right?
Yeah, I like that.
When things are the same is when you start to get kind of detached or tired or unenthusiastic. Samuel Beckett, the great playwright, said one of his famous quotes is, "Habit is the great deadener." Habit is the great deadener.
Deadener. I like that. Yeah.
It's like the more you do something and it becomes routine, that you just kind of get dead to it, and because it's not sparking your interest, it's not stimulating, right?
Right.
Think about like when I know this is for me, like when I'm day to day walking around town, I don't notice my environment all that much because I'm thinking about where I'm going, or I'm thinking about the next thing or the gig or the rehearsal or whatever.
Yeah.
When I'm traveling, like when we go on a trip, I'm like, wow, look at all that. I'm like hyper tuned in to my surroundings.
Yeah.
Right. And of course, there's so much here that I just don't see that's here. Like if you came here for the first time, like, oh, wow, look at all this. Remember, Bart, when you came here for Deck Day, you were noticing all the cool graffiti on along the freeway. I was like,
on the freeway, on the trains. I thought it would. I always think the story I remember telling was, I remember that the two TV shows in the 70s, Welcome Back, Kotter, and then also Kotter Country, and there was this scene at the opening where there was, it's like New York City or no, Chico and the Man. I'm sorry, Chico and the Man, and it's some inner city place. And these trains are going by with all the graffiti on it. And I remember being a kid, being so far removed from that because of how I grew up, that I was like, that's the coolest thing ever. And a lot of people would complain about that and say it's ugly and who graffitis on trains. Like, no, that's art. That's cool. Yeah, I like it, and it was really cool.
You just totally illustrated my point, which is for you, that was new.
Right.
For me, growing up in New York City, that was old.
Right.
And so it was like, oh yeah, graffiti on the train. I don't even notice it. Oh, did that train even have graffiti? I wasn't even paying attention.
Right.
It's like this, and this is if you're just tuning in, this is sort of the parallel we're talking about with playing music when you've been doing it for the same tunes over and over. Someone who's, Bart would come in and hear a song I've been playing, for 5 years, and be like, dude, that was awesome. But like, oh, really? That old thing? I didn't even notice.
Yeah.
It. So I think that's important is to keep things fresh, right? And any way you can do that. So you asked Chip, how do you deal? Someone's got burnout. What do you suggest? Well, one thing I suggest is like, hey, what are you not good at? Like, do you play double bass? If you're not a double bass player, go challenge yourself with some double bass stuff. Are you not a good reader? Not a good rudiment guy? Go work on through one of the Wilcoxon books.
Yeah.
Is jazz not your thing? Go, start playing some jazz stuff. I mean, like, just challenge yourself with something new. There's infinite material out there that we can all work on, right? I mean, there's books coming out every day about all the stuff we don't know.
Right.
So, that's one way of keeping it interesting and stimulating you and getting you back to having some passion is like inspiring you with something new.
Earlier today, before the show, I was looking at Google and researching how different people get through burnout and ways to get out of it. And one of the main things that kept coming up on different searches is prioritizing self-care, making sure you get enough sleep.
Ooh, good one.
Exercising regularly. You know what I mean? Limiting the screen time on devices. And I also thought another good way to avoid burnout is make sure that you try to journal your practicing if you're not doing that.
Thank you for that.
Look at the times in your life when you felt engaged and stoked. What was it about the music or what was it about the situation that made you feel energetic? You know what I mean? And one time I remember being a little burnout on my drumming and having a show to get ready for a performance, a clinic date, and needing to practice, but not really feeling into it. And a friend of mine told me, he's like, well, what songs got you going when you were a kid? You know what I mean? What was the first introduction to music when you really were rocking out and you didn't care what anybody thought and you weren't in front of anybody? What songs made you just really rock out? And get a couple of those and start playing along to them and see what happens. It's kind of like in Top Gun when Tom Cruise loses his friend Goose, he goes through this imposter syndrome feeling and burnout thing, and he's not really engaging. And the guy, the team leader just says, keep getting him back up. Get back up. Get back on the drums. Play something silly. Play something easy, but just keep playing and keep chasing that spark that would finally ignite you to maybe get you out of the burnout situation.
That's awesome. That, Chip, you really nailed that. I think finding that spark, like you said, thank you for showing that. I just put a link for anybody who wants that daily journal. It's on Amazon. It's a great tool to use. It's a great tool to use for your students. It's $9. It's cheap. Yeah, it's a great tool. Thank you for showing that. I think that sometimes, like, if we kind of go back a little bit and talk about what we were saying, how do you pull yourself out of burnout? I think sometimes a comparison, not to compare yourself to another person, but again, back to what we said about Bruce Springsteen and what we said about what I said about Billy Joel, I think to realize that everybody kind of goes through it, right? Mm-hmm. And so you're not the only one. And you can probably find somebody here on deck, call us up, schedule a lesson. A big part of what, and we've talked about this, what all three of us do, all four of us, Rick too, the positive energy hand grenade, for God's sakes, book a lesson with that guy. Yeah. A big part of what we do is like coaching, like how to get through this stuff, in an individual private lesson. You're never too old to have a mentor. Okay. You're never too old. You're never too far gone. You're never too, Michael Jordan, when he was at the top of his game before he retired, had basketball coaches that he worked with daily. The top NFL quarterbacks go to quarterback coaches, right? You're never too old or too far gone to have a mentor. So having a mentor is a big thing, and I think that it's really important to tap into other people's knowledge. I really think that, I had an incident recently. I'm sorry, Jeremy, I didn't mean to cut you off, but the guys, whoever's watching this, whoever sees it in the future, I love what I do. I love the band I'm in. I love all my drum students. I have I don't deserve what I have, right? Sometimes I think. And I was at a point where I was just like, what the hell is going on? And I called Jeremy. I called up Jeremy. I'm like, dude, and he like his hand came through the phone and went and woke me up, you know. And it was one of those things where, and it wasn't like a mentorship. It was like, dude, I need a lesson. I'm going to pay you. Let's do this. I just needed a pep talk,
Right.
you know. I love the fact that every once in a while Chip will call me up just out of the blue. Hey man, I wanted to see how you're doing. It just, he wanted to check on me. I love that stuff. Have those people in your life.
That's one thing that I learned from a friend of mine when I'm in a burnt out situation and I'm feeling not inspired, calling people that I know and respect and love and asking them how they're doing and getting interested in something other than me helps get me out of my head and get some more motivation. And I love what you said about seeking out a drum lesson, or like what Jeremy said about what do you suck at? Because we all have weak spots. You know what I mean? Challenge yourself to find something new and try to learn that. And that's a great way to get out of burnout.
You mentioned exercise, Chip, and I'm a big advocate for that. I've always done yoga. I've always martial arts, lifting weights, something to keep myself physically fit, because, you know, it's a physical instrument. I want to be in good shape, you know, for everything, you know, just to be able to do the job. And so every morning I'm up, I'm in the gym, and, you know, I don't want to be big muscle guy or anything like that. It's so that I can, you know, keep everything oiled up, you know, and working. So I think if you're burned out, getting an exercise routine going, just go out for a walk, you know, and if your mind is so caught up in music and that sort of stuff, hey, I'm going to take a cooking class, you know. Right. I'm going to find a personal trainer, and I'm going to work my way up to be able to bench press 100 pounds by, you know, within 6 months, whatever it is. Those things get you away. Just step away for a minute, you know, and go do something else. It's a big help.
That's great. And you know, wrapped up in that example you just gave are like several of the points we covered today, which are like, surround yourself with other people, do something you're not good at or something new or different. Set yourself a goal. Fred talked about that earlier, mentioned that earlier. So all those things are stimulating, right? All those things are change. All those things are movement from a stagnant place. And I think it's change and movement that helps you move through this stagnant, you know, apathetic place. You know, Winston Churchill said, if you're going through hell, keep going.
Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah, right. Exactly. Hey,
there's a lot of research that says that points to the act of just walking.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Keep away most depression, or to get out of depression, moving your feet, taking physical action of some kind. There's something there.
I believe
there's a great book, and for the life of me, I'm racking my brain trying to remember the author. It's a book called The Obstacle is the Way. Chip's Googling it right now. Yep. And it is an amazing book on, okay, when you come across an obstacle.
Holiday.
There you go. Thank you. You can't, you know, okay, I've come across this mountain. I'm going to turn around and go back. No, don't. Look, climb the mountain, go around the mountain, get a shovel, dig underneath the mountain, get some dynamite, blow the mountain up. Whatever you've got to do. I prefer the dynamite because it's kind of fun. But you know, don't run away from the obstacle. Fred put something up here, Jeremy, maybe you can put, years ago, I was playing 5 sets a night in a cover band. Yeah, sometimes on the 5th set, I would see just how far I could fall asleep and keep drumming. That was that's a miserable time. That man,
went up each other with the Walt Disney.
Yeah, you and Chip should start a band, man. That's cool. You know, but you know what? That is something that is. I want to touch on this because our friend Matt Starr caught a bunch of shit on social media for this, and I'm sorry. I know we try not to cuss on the show, but he got a bunch of shit, and I don't think he deserved it. He was making a point when he said that people who play in cover, if you're in a cover band, you're a dishwasher of the music world. And then all these people were giving him a bunch of crap about it. And really what he meant was, look, if you're stuck in, and I agree with him, if you're stuck in a band where you're playing 5 sets a night and you hate it and you're miserable and you're making $100 for 5 sets a night, that doesn't count bringing your gear into the club, setting it up, playing the 5 sets, tearing it back down, putting the car, driving it home at 2 a.m, dodging all the drunks on the road. This is just playing 5 sets a night for $100. And he's right. Look, if you want to move up in the world, and everybody was saying, well, you're playing in a cover band because you play for Ace Frehley. Well, yeah. Well, would you rather play Ace Frehley songs or Gary Hoey songs in a bar and make $500 a night, or make $100 a night? Or would you rather actually play with Ace Frehley, make quite a bit more, and have a career take off for you? So I want to kind of throw out my love for Matt, because Matt's a great guy. He's been on the show. We know Matt. He's a great dude. Well, so
can I jump
don't be burned out there. Yeah, go.
I think that to unpack that a little bit, like it just all depends on how you feel about it, right? Like you can imagine a scenario where there's a drummer, and they started late as an adult. I'm making this up, and they finally got into the cover band and they're playing 5 sets a night and they love it. Oh my God, it's the best release from a crappy work week. And they live for the weekend when they get to play five sets, and the money's not an issue. So here's a drummer who loves playing five sets for $100, doesn't care about the load in or dodging the drunks on the way home. And it's like, this is their, happy place. Great. Good on you. I got no problem with that. I would never think of you as a dishwasher or whatever. This is you what's working, right? For me, that's not working. For me, that feels grunt, like grunt labor, and and I want something more, right? And that's what Matt was speaking to.
Yeah, I agree with that too. And James, you're right. He did clarify his statement because it was misconstrued by many, and I agree with you, James. I just I'm just throwing my 2 cents in here on
No, it's great topic.
Our podcast. Yeah.
One of my students, Jackson, plays in a band called Quadrant 2044, and his mom posted a video of them playing, and it was an outside gig. There's people trying to eat dinner, what I mean, while the band's rocking, doing these rocking songs. And it's just, in that situation, I might feel miserable, right? But in contrast, those kids were just jacked and excited.
Oh, dude, totally.
So stoked to be playing. And it's like, we get paid too. You know what I mean? Like, this is just fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, that's right. That's it's like, for me, it's like, $100 a gig, and for another guy, $100 a gig.
Right? Exactly. Yeah.
And it's all relative. But I mean, it's all relative.
Okay, I'm going to throw one out to you as a drum teacher. So you drum teachers watching, there's times when you have some challenges with a student. And no matter what these challenges are, I'll throw this one out there. There's a lot of times where it's been a long day. You've been teaching for 5 hours, and the 8-year-old kid comes in, and you just want to go, just play the quarter note. Just play, count to 4 and start over. It's all you got to do. We've all been there, right? You maybe look at your thing, oh man, it's gonna be a long half hour. And that's it. It happens to every one of us. And if you say it doesn't happen, then you're not being truthful with yourself. How do you deal with that? Because I have anecdotes for that too. Jeremy, go.
Boy, I mean, it's pretty similar to what we're talking about when you got to play the show for the umpteenth time in the same tunes. This is the one lesson they get per week. They're coming in and they're fresh and they're like, hey, drums, and they're excited, and maybe they're bouncing off the walls. And you're getting paid to be there, and you're getting paid not just to be there, but to be present and to care.
There you go. Thank you.
And to do your job as best you can. And so part of it for me is like a professional pride or whatever. Like, I don't ever want to be caught mailing in my drumming, and I don't ever want to be caught mailing in my teaching.
Yeah.
I think of both of those as sort of equally important, and requiring of me, the best version of myself that I can muster in that moment. Now, look, we all have bad days. There's days when you're tired, and I'll say like, oh, it's been a long day, please bear with me. And sometimes I get super energized by the lesson, you know, and sometimes I'll go in there, I'm like, oh, I'm dreading it. And then I walk out, I'm like, oh man, that was awesome. It was just what I needed, pick me up out of my funk or whatever. Same with the gig. That's my answer.
Chip, what about you?
When it comes to teaching, I've always had butterflies before going in to teach lessons. And I've always thought of it as an honor, as like a sacred thing that these parents would trust me with their child,
right?
To be a molding force in that child's life of
mentor.
And so, those people were paying me money for my focus, for my attention, and when I'm tired and I'm burnt out and my butt hurts because I've been on the stool for 5 hours, that kid comes in, I try to remember exactly what Jeremy said. This is his one lesson. He hasn't been here for 5 hours. He's here right now to learn from me. So I get into that place and I get back to the whole, why am I teaching? What is the goal here? And where is that student at? And how can I get him to that next level? I've never had a really burnout problem with teaching.
Yeah,
that's perfect. And I want to, everything that you guys just said was exactly what I was going to say. And then I will add to it this one little anecdote. When I'm in that place, as Jeremy said, I'm in a funk. I'm just like, maybe it's me that's in a bad place. My butt hurts from sitting on the drum throne for 5 hours. I'm in everything that you guys just described. I do everything that you guys said. I think everything you just said. And then I add to it. At one point, I was that kid. I was the kid going, okay, why can't I play the quarter note? What am I, and I remember feeling so bad that I couldn't do it. And I just felt like I was letting my teacher down. I don't want that kid, whether it's online or if it's in an in-person lesson or whatever, to go, oh man, Bart's upset with me. No, not at all. And I really tap into, hey, I used to be you and I are the same thing. I've just been doing a little bit longer.
Well, you have to recognize as a teacher that, like Chip was saying, you have almost like a sacred responsibility here.
Yeah, you do.
Like you're trying to transmit this knowledge and this information to enrich people's lives and teach them about how to develop their skills and be better drummers, better listeners, better human beings. Mm-hmm. And you are only as good as how much you care about what you're doing. You could have all the knowledge in the world and be the baddest ass, paradiddles at 300, and you could be a lousy teacher.
Right.
I mean, that has nothing to do with it. I mean, really. So, taking your responsibility seriously, acknowledging that it matters what you're doing and it matters how you do it, and just keeping that in the forefront of your mind. I want to point out one other thing. Jim Royal has talked about some of the things, and Rick has as well, habits that they have. They talk about their routines in the morning, and I think Jim has some rule with he and his wife. They're like, we don't touch our phones for the first 2 hours of the day, or something like that. Mm-hmm. I can remember him saying something like that. And Rick has other things like that, where he and Julia his wife go on these sort of affirmation walks, where they take a walk every morning and they talk about what they're grateful for, and just as a practice, that gets you in a different mindset.
Yeah.
And as opposed to you walk, you get out of bed, you light your cigarette, and you pick up your phone,
Yeah.
and you go down this, the same place every time, instead of being present and grateful for the things that you have and the opportunities that you have. I mean, how would it be, God forbid, if one of us, got into some accident and hurt our foot or our hand and couldn't play?
Right.
Oh boy, would that make you long for those days where you're playing those boring gigs
Yeah.
Right.
mailing in or playing that same tune over and over. You'd give anything to be able to just do that again. Right.
Yep.
So
I had a friend of mine that was going through cancer, who was a drummer, and he was a pro. He ended up beating it, but he was in a bad place, and he thought he wasn't going to beat it. And I remember him saying, "Man, I can't believe I'm going to miss these songs. I already miss them."
right.
You know, and I was just like, oh my God, dude, that's terrible. And not to go down a super negative path here. I remember my dad at his 60th birthday, he was saying it's really weird being this age because a lot of people around you are dying, the people that you love. And for some reason right now, I have a lot of people in my life that, cancer took this person, that person had this happen, like, and it's that just very little separation of somebody that's close to you passing away. And so I think that the thankfulness, both of you guys, nailed it when you said being thankful for what it is that you have, journaling and doing things like that. And then being thankful, being grateful, and really, making sure that you think things are an honor, like teaching a kid or playing Mustang Sally. A lot of drummers out there wish they could play Mustang Sally. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, I think that's important.
There's a lot of people out there that would love to be a drummer and don't have a drum set.
Right.
If you really think about it, when you guys, Jeremy touched on that gratitude, gratitude is such a huge, huge factor in what it takes to get out of burnout.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's not that hard to write down 3 things that you're grateful for in the morning. You know what I mean? That you can really appreciate the fact that you have socks, whatever.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
There's something powerful about the state of gratitude, which can help get you out of burnout.
And,
I listened to. Go ahead, Jeremy. Sorry.
Is a little reality check from someone else to remind you of how much you do have to be grateful for. When Bart called me that time and he was, spinning, and I was like, and all he needed was an outside perspective, and I was like, dude, you got X, Y, Z, A, B, C, D, E going on, and kicking ass and taking names. And he's like, oh wow, and he just needed to hear that, right? Sometimes we need that.
Yeah, I think we do. I think sometimes, and it's not even a pat on the back. I think it's a wake up call. You know what I mean? It's like, oh yeah, I'm just kind of crying about this stuff. You're right.
Well, and we all go through it. It's not normal. I mean, Ringo had a very well documented bout of huge self-doubt.
Right.
A lot of the drummers who've come on our show, famous people, have talked about, periods of their lives where they didn't get the audition, or, they didn't make the band and they were feeling down on themselves and what am I doing? And I suck and all that stuff. And
yeah. I think that when you get it, recognizing you're getting into that place, if you kind of start recognizing that, it's a little bit easier to stop it before it starts, maybe. And so just be aware of it. Hey man, I'm kind of going down this road. Maybe I should just go for a walk.
Right. Intervene, or do or pick up a new, skill challenge, or any of the things we talked about that you can do to sort of get yourself out of that place.
Well, a couple of years ago, I got a guitar. I got a beautiful. You can't see it from here. I got a beautiful Fender Stratocaster over there in the corner, and I can plink around on 3 chords, but I have fun at it, and just it's playing a new instrument, even though I've had it for a few years. That just that one little bit of forward momentum that I get after I play it for a little bit. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, now my fingers know where to go. It's reinvigorating. Totally. And that carries into, well, gosh, if I can do that, well, now I can play that weird thing in 11 that I always been trying to play, or what have you. So yeah,
great stuff.
Hey, Peter just checked in.
What's up?
Awesome. I think I also think that Chip you said this, and I think we were talking about some musicality stuff and playing really musical and playing as musical as you can with a song that you may or may not like. I think really thinking musical. How can I make this song, groove? How can I make this lesson groove? How can I make all these things as musical as possible from my perspective? I think that that's something that, we can go on and for days about this stuff, but I think that's important too. What are you guys thoughts on that?
Oh
Totally.
yeah, I've done lessons before where I was tuning out a little bit and having trouble getting back into it, and I started doing this thing where a young kid, 7 years old, plays the part, plays it wrong. I'm like, okay, slow down, and that's not it. Let's go back and slow down and try it again. Okay, and that's not really okay. And then finally he gets it right. So after all that, I just started hitting my drums and started going, dun, 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 we have a winner. You know what I mean? Like big old fuss about it. And the kids really laugh and enjoy it. And so that's one of the things I do to keep it going and keep the lesson on the up.
That's great, Chip.
That's great, man. That's really cool.
I always remember that thing I did at Deck Day, guys, where I had, I wish I'd spent more time on this. I had a couple of the students come out and play along with a song, and then I helped shape it. I was like, okay, tighten your hi-hat a little bit. Give me a little bit more snare, back off on the bass drum, whatever. We kind of molded the sound of the groove.
Yeah.
And there, that to me is another example of things they'll do in lessons where, like, they might think like, oh, this is easy. The part's easy. I can play this beat forever. I'm like, yeah, you can play the beat, but you're not playing the song,
Yeah.
And so let's see if I can make you believe that there's more to this than just delivering the beat, correctly and in time.
Yeah, and what a powerful example. When I saw that in the clinic, when you at each adjustment that you had them do was very powerful, very impactful.
Right. And that to us, I think it's so easy for us, as professionals to take that for granted because that's just what we do instinctively. Mm-hmm. But people, you see this all the time. Students will play parts and they'll play the part correctly, mm-hmm. but it's not dialed in for the tune, right?
Yeah.
I am dialing something in for the tune. It doesn't have to be a hard part. I saw an interview one time with Kenny Aronoff, and he was in a session with the Stones, okay, but he was playing percussion. And I don't remember what the instrument was that he was playing, a tambourine, a shaker, whatever it was. He's playing an auxiliary percussion thing. And this was before Charlie Watts had passed, and a lot of people, don't think a lot of Charlie Watts, they'll say, so, he's so simple, he always, he takes the hi-hat off of 2 and 4, right? And Mick came over to him because whatever he's playing along, and he goes, "You're doing great, mate, but stay out of the way of Charlie's hi-hat. It's so musical." and I was like, wow, man, that was such a big part of the Stones sound, Yes. And I think again, those tapping into those things, having a good wellspring of, oh, I saw this interview with this guy, or I saw this guy say this once, you can pull yourself there. Your Deck Day demonstration, since Deck Day, I've been out on the road a lot, and we had a run where we were doing, I don't know, 5 or 6 nights in a row, and it was the same set, same everything, different town every night. And I remember at one point I was like, what I'm going to do what Jeremy talked about. I'm going to really make the hi-hat just buttery, but I'm really going to lay into the 2 and 4 on this tune because it's that backbeat's so prevalent, mm-hmm. and you tap into that. I played this song 6 nights in a row. This is a new crowd, all that stuff we've talked about, but man, yeah, Jeremy was right. This is really, cool.
It's like as I talked about earlier, like how can you make vanilla the most incredible vanilla that you've ever had? Right. I mean, there may not be a whole lot of bells and whistles to what you're playing, but like there's artistry and depth, just like we talked about Charlie Hayden with that in one note, there's infinity. How can you come back to that? And that's a way of getting out of the funk and getting out of the this is boring, well, it's boring if you believe it's boring, it's boring. you take the attitude that there's infinite possibility with everything you play, then it's like exciting every time. I used to play, Peter, you'll appreciate this story. I used to play with a guitar player, amazing player. And he said at one point, oh man, if I never have to play, whatever it was, There Is No Greater Love again, I'll be happy. So just jazz standard that's played all the time. And he played it a million times on a million gigs. And I thought to myself, so you've said everything that there's possible to say on this tune. I mean, jazz tunes are just vehicles, it's just a melody over a set of chord changes, and the chord changes loop and they cycle through, and you get to solo, the next person solos. And every time you do it, that's why jazz is so interesting and, compelling, is because it's made up as you go. Like there's improvisation, and you're sort of every time trying to catch lightning in a bottle with creativity and band communication and all that. And to me, it's like never ending. It's by nature, it's this never ending, open-ended thing that you can never be done with. Yeah, you can be familiar with chord changes and, the scales you use and all that stuff. But like how you do it, everything in the moment is now, and now is was not yet a moment ago. And that's the same thing even with rock stuff. It's a narrower window for freedom of expression, but, whatever you're doing on stage, Bart, for the 15th night in a row of the tour at 10 o'clock at night, the same song, same tempo, everything. You didn't do that before. You did something. Yesterday was different.
I tell my students this all the time. I've been listening to and learned and played the song Back in Black since it came out in 1980. Okay, I mean that's how old I am, and that's usually the second song that I teach somebody how to play and read. Right? We play other songs, but that's the second one. Okay, we're going to play this one. Nope, perfect. Here's your transcription. Let's go. Every time that I'm like, yeah, I tap into that inner 12-year-old and I'm ready to rock. I love it, man. I can give me more vanilla ice cream. I want some more. Keep the sprinkles and the chocolate sauce away. I want it.
Yeah.
Years ago, there was a Modern Drummer article with Alex Van Halen in it. It was in the mid 80s. I read it, and Alex Van Halen said that the advice his dad gave him was to play the drums like it's the last chance you're ever going to get to play.
Yep.
Knowing that you'll be able to play forever. And I never really got that until at one point I was in a blues band doing the bar scene. And when people would say like Leonard Skinner, I would just like go, oh no, you know what I mean? Like, oh, here we go. We're going to be playing Freebird or Simple Man. And one time I was asked to join the band at a memorial for a good friend of our local town. He was a cat on the scene. He passed away. And we did this memorial, and I got up and I had to play Freebird. And because of his passing and because of that quote from Alex Van Halen, like, this is the last, what if this was the last song I'll ever play? Yep. How would I play it? And what could I put into it? There's a really good perspective things we're talking about.
Dude, Chip, again, you're just knocking them out of the park today. Dude, that is so deep. Yeah. You're sitting on stage, and the last song of the set, the fifth set of the night, you're complaining about your $100. The last song where you're like, I just want to go home. That's the last time you ever get to play. Something terrible happens.
Hopefully it's
God forbid.
Hopefully it's not a Hootie and the Blowfish song.
Yeah, right.
Right. But I mean, come on, man. That's your last shot. I mean, so yeah, it's a great perspective, guys. We're over time here, a little bit after 12. I want to thank everybody for watching. Centerstream Publishing, Aquarian Drumheads. Rick, we hope that whatever happened to you today in the dentist office, that right now you're talking to your wife and you're saying, what? And you don't feel your face for all day. I hope it's not too painful. I'm joking.
All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week, and keep drumming, keep practicing.
Little Back in Black.